Happy Friday, Paul. It is First Ring Daily Live, and it's Friday, as I already said.
You're on top of your game today, Brad.
I am. I am all over it.
You should
Do you
do
know
a
why I'm
live
so
show.
happy today, Paul?
Because it's Friday?
Well, there's that, and I'm golfing tomorrow morning at one of my favorite courses. So
which iPhone did you order today, Brad?
wow, so that's how we're going to start this. You're just going to accuse me of waking up at midnight to actually. You want to know what I was doing at midnight, Paul?
Maybe.
Fair response. I will give you.
Let's see where this goes.
Actually, I was very upset. I stayed up very late watching the Bengals game last night. And as I have come to learn over the 32 years of my life existence, I was once again let down by a poor performance by the Bengals.
Who did they lose to this time?
The Texans.
I think most people in the country would refer to that game as the Texans game, but I see what you're saying.
Remember how we talked about hurtful words, Paul?
Vaguely.
I can't make this up. I cannot make this up. Why did I just get logged out while I was using my machine?
Still using Windows 10s, huh?
Yeah, it's S stands for stable and security, and we're just going to log you out while you're typing. But that's helpful. Sure. Anyways, Paul, you wrote something up today, which, to be honest, I haven't looked at because you tried to bother me when I was doing something else. But what's the deal behind this 330 million Microsoft Edge user number?
I was desperate not to publish this thing without having someone look at it. So I pinged you to see if you could check my math.
Yep.
And then when you responded in a very negative and I thought fairly abusive fashion, I decided to turn to Twitter and ask them to check my math. And I don't know if you've ever interacted with Twitter before, Brad, but let's just say there was a lot of unrelated nonsense. You know, for example,
understandable.
Microsoft said that there are 330 million Edge users. That would be over two-thirds of all the people using Windows 10. But we know that Edge only represents between 3.25 and 5.5% usage on the web on desktop, based on data from StatCounter, from Net Market Share, from other companies as well. We also know from Microsoft that there are 1.5 billion desktop PC users, PC users. And if you do the math, those two things don't iron out. You know, you're somewhere between 55 and 100 million users based on actual usage. And then you have Microsoft's number, which is 4 to 5 times higher than that. So what's going on there? And I have some theories about lying and being a liar and not telling the truth, but I think it's probably related to things that are not web browsing, like people who use Edge to install Chrome, people who use Edge to read PDF files because it is the default PDF viewer in Windows 10, that kind of thing.
That could be reading books.
Yeah, 2 or 3 of them are probably reading books. There are 20 million people on Xbox. Those guys are technically Edge users. I don't think any of them are active Edge users, but you never know. It just doesn't add up, I think, is the point. So yeah, I was really hoping to get your eyeballs on that one this morning. So thanks for letting me down. That was great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it when you venture out into the void alone, and I can sit back and watch you get slaughtered from afar.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
But this is the thing. Anytime Microsoft puts out a usage number, even their 500 million active user numbers, even what they put out yesterday, was it yesterday or earlier this week with Microsoft Teams? That was Monday, not yesterday, where they said it's like 118,000 organizations are using Teams. Those are great numbers, but we have absolutely no idea what that means. For Teams, does that mean they, like, one person in a 100,000 person company opened up Teams by accident and said, what is this? Or does that mean that they're actually using it? And this is the same thing with Edge. And don't forget, Paul, I didn't even think about this. This might be what is juicing the numbers too. Every time you install a new build, at least on Insiders, it automatically opens it.
Yep, I did include that in my article because every time you turn on a new computer for the first time or upgrade to a new version of Windows 10, right? That's what happens exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't think Yeah.
I don't either, but
Yep.
I'm not. I'm trying not to be cynical about it, but the truth is, there is no version of this story where it makes any sense. So no, there just isn't. I mean, even
No.
I mean, I actually do use Edge to read PDF files because I don't really need to do it that much. Actually, that's not even true on all my PCs, but I do sometimes. Like I'll open it sometimes. Does that make me like an active user of Edge? I don't think so. I don't think that's when you hear active. Well, it's active devices is the term they use, but it's people on a device using Edge. I mean, I don't think anyone is imagining occasional PDF viewing as the rationale for that.
Yeah. It would be different, I think, if the survey was, how many web pages do you browse on your computer and what application do you use them?
Right.
I think the answer would be overwhelmingly Chrome based on the data that we've seen from third-party sources as opposed from Microsoft's propaganda machine.
Yep. Yeah. Pretty consistently about 60% of the web is browsed on Chrome on desktop.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's not all that surprising. Moving on from here, though, Paul, it is browser-based, though, and I'm going to write this up next week. So the past 7 days, 10 days or so, I tried a little experiment. I stopped everything that I was doing that was working because
I noticed.
Why? And I went and I tried to live explicitly only in the browser the best that I could. And that goes from using Word in the browser, using all web-based things, using my calendar in the web, and just living in a browser. And I got to tell you, it is a disastrous experience.
But can if I could throw a wrench into this story, because if I'm not mistaken, well, maybe I am. Did you do that in Windows 10s, or are you talking about
no
using Chrome?
In Chrome. Using Chrome.
Gotcha.
So basically what I wanted to see was I go back and forth between like, should I use actual applications like UWP apps, or should I just try to live in a browser because that is truly the universal platform? And what I realized is that when you live in a browser, and this sounds like really simple, like after I figured it out, what happens is that your taskbar just becomes tabs. Like it's such a simple idea.
Becomes tabs. Well, but okay.
No,
so by the way,
tabs become the taskbar.
Well, but that's if you're doing it in a browser window, because one of the nice things about Windows 10 and Chrome is that you can pin those things. And if you use Chrome OS, you can do the same, right? So those browser-based web apps become standalone apps, essentially, and they work with Alt Tab.
Yeah,
you know,
but it doesn't work out as well as it sounded in my head and on theory. And I was thinking, gosh, this is going to be great. And what I realized is that just running actual apps on the desktop is still, at least for me, a better way to kind of live. And then that's what kind of kicked off the starting of, okay, where can I get a new budget app? Where can I get a new to-do list tab type thing? Where can I get a new calendar? And so I would say in the past,
it's interesting. It's weird to me that you came to a different conclusion than I did, because in the wake of my using Windows 10s every day for 2 weeks straight while I was in Spain, and then I've been using it since updating the book, I've come to the conclusion that a web-based existence actually makes a lot more sense than, say, Windows 10, which is Windows 10s, I should say, which is like a store app-based existence. But on the flip side, like you, I made fun of you when you were doing this because, frankly, if I could make a career doing this, I'd be rich. But I do exactly the same thing, which is things are working too well, so I start testing other stuff. And sometimes you hit on a win. Like sometimes you actually do hit on something that really works. But more often than not, you kind of confirm like, oh, right, this is the way I do things the way I do. But my version of what you just went through is Markdown Pad. Like I've tried different Markdown editors. There's some good ones in the store. There's some good ones on the web. But the truth is, I've got this local install I do of this app that's never going to be updated again, and it requires a special software library to make it work. And you know what? I really like the application. And I got stuck on MetroTrit for a long time until I finally found Twitter Lite for the same reason. Like the others, I keep testing other stuff, but I can't find something that I like better. And by the way, this isn't exactly why, but a lot of times people say, why don't you just use Linux? Why don't you just use the Mac? Why don't you just use a Chromebook? I really prefer Windows, like by a wide margin. Like it's not even close. It's not like if there was just one thing on the Mac, I could make that work. Like I really don't like using the Mac. And unfortunately, you know, Windows 10s right now falls into that same category. It looks like Windows 10, but it just doesn't, it's not Windows, you know, and that's the problem. So it's interesting. I think you and I basically, without talking about it to each other, do the same thing all the time. as each other.
Yep. And I do agree that progressive web apps will eventually be the future. I just don't think we're quite there yet, is kind of where the conclusion ended up. It's that they're great and they're getting there, but from a pure, like, I just need to like live and get work done. Can I do it just in a browser? It's like, yes. Is it going to be good? No.
So, by the way, I actually agree with that. And the reason I do is that it's not that the capabilities aren't there. It's not that progressive web apps couldn't do everything that both of us are looking for. It's just that there are no good examples of these apps beyond what we already know about. And so every so often, Google or Microsoft will come out with something about progressive web apps. And I always pay a lot of attention to it because I want to see what's going on there and what's happening. And every single time these guys, like, they card out the same exact example, which is the one progressive app that I use every single day, which is that Twitter Lite app, which is at mobile.twitter.com. Yeah. I love this thing. I use it every day. It's literally what I use for Twitter. Could we have a second example, please? Because I need, I'd like my email app to be this. I'd like my calendar app to be this. I would like my Markdown editor to be this. I would like there to be a Photoshop alternative that was cheap or free that was this. But, as of today, those things do not exist.
Yep. And speaking of the browser, Mark G in the comments, which I haven't heard anything about this. He says, Microsoft is looking to start up an insider program from Edge, is per his understanding. I wonder how that's different than what we already have.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it would be a way just to access the Edge application on your current version of Windows 10. But I mean, at that point, seriously, could you separate it from the OS? Like I sort of understand that there are the Edge rendering engine impacts other things that are not Edge. Like, I get that, but I also feel that the end user capabilities of Edge should be separated from that rendering engine as far as how they get updated, and that they can keep the rendering engine in the OS if they have to, but make the application a separate thing. Make it another one of those things that accesses that rendering engine, and update the damn thing, because they really are getting there. It's fair to say over the past 3 or 4 versions of Windows 10, however many there've been so far, I think 4, it's gotten a lot better, no doubt about it. But it's still, it's still not quite there. And I feel like if they just unleashed the hounds, they could make it happen.
Yep. I don't disagree. A couple other quick things here. Paul, have you heard of Bing for Business?
I saw a mention of it somewhere. So I'll withhold my joke about that, and then tell me please what it is.
So Walking Cat this morning, several hours ago, tweeted out Bing for Business. He found like a little login or sign up sheet for it, and I was actually able to determine what it is. So it's nothing exciting, is what it is. Basically, what it allows it allows you to do, or allows a company to do, is to inject their intranet sites into Bing. So if you have a payroll website on your intranet, then they can inject that. So when you go to Bing and type whatever Contoso payroll company, it will show up in those search results at the very top in its own special little box. Yep.
I mean, I don't know that I've ever taken a micro nap per se, but if I had, it happened about 10 seconds ago. Not your fault. You have a very soothing voice.
I if Bing for Business was activated on our company site, I would search for workers' comp because of harassment.
Sorry.
So, and speaking of harassing you, did you get your computer figured out, and did you try out PUBG yet?
No, so yeah, just so people know what I'm doing here is I've got an HP gaming PC, which is amazing, and obviously what I need to do is get going on Steam, because I've downloaded some Windows Store games, and a lot of them, like Gears of War 4 I mentioned yesterday, are very clearly limited to 60 frames a second artificially, because it so sticks to 60, like it's clearly being stuck there. So what I want to do is really put this thing through its paces, and that means I need to get real PC games, which means I need to be on Steam. So I have a Steam account, but the thing is my son uses it, and because I don't really play games on the PC anymore. So I contacted him, and I was like, hey, if I use this account, is this going to screw you up? And the way it works, as you know, is we can't both be on the account at the same time. So I did start a new account. We're going to do some kind of a family sharing thing. I might just buy a game. The problem is he owns this game and he could share it with me, and that would be a lot easier. Well, it wouldn't be easier, as it turns out. It's really difficult, but it would certainly be less expensive. But I might just go ahead and buy it just to do it, because I want to get something that really shows off the capabilities of the PC and kind of stresses the PC a little bit. But yeah, so as of 1:21 p.m. on Friday, no, I have not. But I maybe today I'll get going on that.
Letting us down once again. To follow up on that Edge Insider program, actually a couple people in the chat room said they have received invitations, and he says he's currently, somebody says they're currently using it in parallel with Chrome, and it's working most of the time. It is different, and it allows them to have people in the program to have direct access to Edge developers, and they'll receive new versions before other insiders.
I mean, I'm starting to feel like we have too many of these things, you know.
Yeah.
But okay, fine. Did they receive this invitation via email? Is that the deal?
That I don't know. I would imagine to be email. I don't.
Yeah, and I would assume that Microsoft is inviting people who have maybe contributed in this area. You know, they've submitted bugs or feedback about Edge, and thus have shown an interest.
Yep, that would be my guess as well. But what's interesting is that if they can update it so quickly on Insider Program, I don't know why they don't just do that for, I don't know, the regular users, but
the whole world.
Here we are.
Maybe. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Here we are. It is Friday, folks, and on Friday, one of the things we do is take a look back at some of the comments that were either funny, witty, insightful, or made fun of Paul on the site. And on Paul's feature focus on my people, the Joe Finn writes, he says, if there was Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and Discord integration, it might actually be useful.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, messaging being the great proprietary non-standard of our time. Nobody's going to give in on this. You know, this is one of those Highlander moments. They're all trying to be the one, and it's not going to work out because no one is going to cede that kind of compatibility. So yeah, it's probably the worst thing going on right now as far as that kind of cross solution compatibility thing, because there is none basically.
Yep. Yeah, it actually reminds me of, I want to say, the late 90s or early 2000s. There used to be a lot of all-in-one chat clients where you'd have like your AIM, your ICQ, and your IRC and all in one little wrapper.
Right.
And
what was that? There was a standard for chats. It was like, I think it began with a J or something. Like it was going to be like Google was going to use it for a while, and then they backed off of it. What was it? Sorry,
I don't.
Jabber, maybe that's what
Jabber. Yes, that's what it was.
But, I think what happens ultimately is that these things are platforms that are important to the platform makers, and for Apple, this is kind of a core thing. Google's trying to do it and failing terribly with Allo and Duo and the other 23 messaging clients they have. Microsoft's trying to do a little bit with Skype, and you've seen how they went from kind of Messenger to integration in a single Messenger client on mobile, and then okay, well actually we're going to do Skype, and maybe Skype will be the thing. Well, actually we're going to put it in Windows 10. Oh no, I guess actually we're going to put it back on it. I mean, they just they know that everyone knows they need to have this, and it just it's screwing everything up.
Yeah. So next comment comes from on your post, Paul, where it says I'm switching to Android. It comes from Jay Rickle 96. He says I went to Android for a year. Terrible experience. Apps were poorly made. OS is terrible at managing memory and power. And I noticed I went to iOS is much faster. The apps were better. And the battery life was improved. And how my phone was able to have my phone's never had unscheduled reboots. And then somebody commented down below that, Paul, they said in 18 months you're going to write I'm switching back to iOS.
Well, so I'm in a unique position because I'm actually going to use both anyway. So even when I was using iOS primarily, I was using Android too. A couple of points to what I would say broad strokes, what this guy is saying is actually very much true. And it is the situation that a lot of people find themselves in on Android. But it depends on the device. One of the things I pointed out about my Pixel XL is that I have kind of these ongoing performance issues. And right now I'm having this issue where you press the camera button and nothing happens. So you think you didn't press it properly, so you got to push it again. And in that moment of indecision, the camera app actually pops up, and then when you press down on the screen again, it presses the back button or whatever the button is on that corner, and it makes it go into the camera roll. right? So here you are trying to take a picture quick, baby, of something that's happening, and you find yourself staring at the last photo you took, and it's really aggravating. So, I get it. I think your experience on Android is going to vary wildly depending on the device you get.
Yep, I would agree.
I don't know what he had, and I can't really say. There is an argument to be made, and it's fair that apps tend, if you look at the same app across Android and iOS, in many cases, the iOS version is kind of cleaner or better looking or whatever, they're different in some way, and often I would say better, and that's fair to say. But these things are not, it's not a simple black and white kind of thing. There are a lot of advantages to Android that you don't have on the iOS side as well, and you have to kind of look at the trade-offs. So if you're looking for a safe kind of experience that's always going to work, might be a little bland, but you'll never have any problems. My iPhone 7 Plus, for all of the complaints I've made about the camera quality, whatever, is on, and I, by the way, like on Android, I have upgraded to every single beta version of anything that's ever come down the pike. And so a year ago when this phone came out, it probably came with iOS, where are we on, 10, I guess. I put the beta versions, because I'm in the developer program, of 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, whatever they were. And by the time we get to 11, I've done every single beta version of that. This thing runs fine. There are no stability problems. There's no reliability problems. I'm not saying it's never actually spontaneously rebooted, but if it has once or twice in a year, and yeah, so yes, please enjoy that safe, Toyota Camry experience. But the advantages of going to Android are very numerous, and among them are the ability to get far more innovative hardware, much nicer screens, much better cameras. And you pay for it. I mean, it's not perfect. If Android was perfect, everyone would just use Android. There are definitely trade-offs, and again, but the important thing, and this is maybe where people like us kind of come in, and people write on Android sites even more so than us, but when you can evaluate these devices and say, this is why you should or should not consider this particular one, your experience is going to vary. I get security updates every single month on this device, and people always tell me, well, you buy an Android device and you never get updated. I'm like, I'm on my second major version and I get a security update every single month. I don't know what you're talking about. So it depends on the device.
So did you get all that out of your system? Do you feel better now?
I have a lot to say on this topic, Brad, but I'll write about this stuff. I mean, I'm going to be writing about Android, so.
Yeah. A couple other quick things to follow up. People in the comments from David and Mark, appreciate it. They said, yes, they got an email today about the Edge Insider Program. If either of you feel inclined about forwarding that email, that's brad.sams@bwwmediagroup.com.
Somebody just forwarded me one, so
I'll... you got that? And then also shout out to Kyle, who works actually on the Edge team, and said, hey, here's another example of a great progressive web app is Starbucks. So Starbucks on the leading edge of mediocre coffee and progressive web apps.
Yep. Starbucks is probably still using like Adobe. I mean, Dunkin' Donuts is probably still using Adobe Flash or something, so it doesn't work on iOS.
There's that.
Jerks.
That is that. So what are you doing this weekend, Paul, besides... did you move recently? Do you still have boxes to unpack?
I did, and let me tell you something, dude. The work is ongoing. In fact, I was surprised we didn't get interrupted during this. We got light fixtures going in today. Monday, we're going to get the sink and the plumbing stuff done. I don't know. We're getting there. We're going to be working on stuff. I'm working on the book this weekend. There is one thing I did want to address, if you don't mind, from it was kind of a feedback kind of forum post kind of thing, which was somebody was complaining about the ads on the site, and I just kind of wanted to put that in perspective because I reacted in an extremely negative way because I am an incredibly negative human being. But no, because look, my name is on this site, and I take this kind of stuff personally. But the flip side of my name being on the site is that this is not a personal website. This is a company, and there are people who work for it, all of whom are my equals, and it's a team of people, and we're smart people, and we're trying to do the right thing, and we know when things are annoying and when they aren't annoying, and we have to make a living too. And so the reality is that the web advertising situation is flushing down the toilet and has been for a long time. It's just getting worse and worse every year. And so one of the reasons that maybe the reason we started the premium program here on Thurrott.com was to find a way to overcome that problem. And there are all kinds of ways you can make money, and some of them are kind of crappy ways, and some of them are kind of better ways. And one of the things I really, really like about what we're doing at Thurrott.com is We're just asking people to pay us for what we do. We're not asking you to buy an ebook from some person we don't know who wrote it or how good it is. We're not asking you to buy into an online store that sells little gadgety things for your phone that you don't need or want. We're just saying, look, this is what we do. If you could pay for it, that would be great. And that's the extent of it. And so I think with this particular issue, the fact remains that the majority of the people who visit the site are obviously not premium customers. And so we have to do what everyone else does, which is have ads. And sometimes those ads involve things that frankly are not as annoying as I see on other websites, right? Like if you go to like Forbes, they do the countdown and they make you look at an ad. And then there are sites that have ad blocker stuff that comes up and says, sorry, you're going to have to whitelist this before you can read this article. It's like, we don't do stuff that's that annoying. We might eventually do something on ad blockers, by the way. I shouldn't make a promise there, but you know, the notion of like a pop-up ad that appears over the site, like I don't know what you call that kind of thing, but like it, you know, occupies like the middle of the screen, and then you click it or hit escape and it goes away. This is not new technology. It's not like we've been investing in science to figure out how to annoy people more than we have in the past. Like this is how the web works. Like we're not doing anything particularly terrible, and so I may not have handled it well because, again, like I take it really personally. Because you would just ask me like what I'm doing this weekend. I don't know if you paid it. I mean, I don't even know what I said exactly, but one of the things I'll be doing this weekend is working. I work 7 days a week. I'll be working on the book. I'll be working on the site. I've got the gaming PC stuff that I'm testing. I know that doesn't sound like work. I've got the smart to play stuff I'm going through, which is awesome. And this is how I spend my time. So when someone's like, you know, I like visiting your site for free and I don't understand why you have to have an ad, that I can easily get out of the way. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry, but that bothers me a little bit because it feels unfair to me. And this situation is not unique to our site or to Petri or any of our sites. This is the web. Unfortunately, it's 2017 and this is how the world works. If I was independently wealthy, if I hit the lottery, everyone I work with would be rich and we would not have any ads on our site, but I'd probably still do it because I like doing it.
Right.
You know, I wish life was like that, but it's not.
I was waiting for you to say the rest of your team would be wealthy too, because yeah, that would have been bad. That'd be bad. Anyways, so yep, totally agree. If you disagree with Paul and would like to punch him in the face, you will have an opportunity to do so. Yep. Paul and I are going to be at Ignite about a week from Monday. So Monday and Tuesday, if you're headed to Ignite, Paul and I will be doing this podcast live in person, so you could actually punch him in the face there. Please don't punch me. I have fragile bones. But yeah,
not the face.
So
that's all. Body blows. You know, I think it's okay. I'm a big guy. I could probably take a bunch of that. Just not the face.
Yeah, I believe we're doing that at 1 p.m. both days. It should be a grand old time, and that is at Ignite. And so,
to be clear, it's in they have a podcast center at Ignite, like they did last year. Yep. And last year, remember, it was that hilarious place in Atlanta with the hallway no one could ever find. I assume in Orlando, it will be a little more straightforward. I've been to the Orlando Conference Center. I don't remember it, and I'm not even sure where this place is, but I assume it will be fairly centrally located. So if you want to come by and watch it, you can, but more to the point, it's like an awesome professional facility. So it should be pretty good.
It's totally like what we're not doing right now.
Exactly. It's like Christmas Day for us. You know, we're finally going to get this thing done correctly for a couple of days, you know.
And on 2 quick notes here. Paul will remember this. Last year when we did the podcast, actually we launched it at Ignite. We finished out the podcast where, you know, we're feeling great. And we asked the lady, like, hey, how do we get back to the press room? And she points one way. Paul and I walked that way for at least 15, 20 minutes to find out it could not have been any more in the opposite direction that we needed to go. Right. So it took us 40 minutes.
It's not possible without a map or without being there to understand how far off we were. But and the sheer cavernous size of the Atlanta Conference Center. But this sounds like an exaggeration. It's not exactly an exaggeration, but we walked, like you said, for 15 or 20 minutes, and then off in the distance, like kind of on the event horizon, you could see it said Hall C. I think we had to get to A. So we walked until we could see the sign that told us it was wrong, and that meant we had just made a 30-minute mistake because we had to go that far in the opposite direction to get back to where we were supposed to be. Like it was so far off. It literally was exactly the wrong direction. So
good times. And fun times. So hopefully we won't be getting lost this year. And one last thing, if you're familiar with this planet, this morning the Cassini spacecraft dove headfirst into it, and I'm a huge space buff and been watching this all day long.
Yeah.
And it's kind of marking the end of one of the probably most invasive maneuvers we've ever done around the planet Saturn, but it gave us a whole bunch of scientific data, which is awesome. So
well,
you can go
by the
find
way,
out.
the reason they crashed it into Saturn, though, is the same reason they crashed a previous space probe into Jupiter, which is you don't want it to accidentally go to one of the moons that might actually have life on it. And so they did this purposely to spare that from happening. This is a gas giant. Who cares? It's just going to burn up in the atmosphere or whatever. But I also am a huge space fan. So you follow the SpaceX stuff, obviously, and they have a fun blooper reel that came out this week. But as part of that blooper reel is the stuff where they succeeded. And like the moment where they landed that jet thing on the floating platform, like I actually started crying. I was like, I couldn't believe how, like, it reminded me of the time I saw the space shuttle land, like a plane on the ground. And I was just like, to me, this stuff is just awe-inspiring. I thought that was, really I love stuff like that. I just think it's amazing.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, everybody, we do this every single day, Monday through Friday, for and against our will, depending on the mood we are in. But it is definitely not live. Live shows happen Friday, but you can catch us Monday through Thursday on Thurrott. And as always, everybody, have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch you back here on Monday.